In 1957, and actually 1958, when we quizzed on Genesis, we all, instead of sitting on quiz chairs, sat on a bench, the same bench, all 6 of us from both teams. Quizmaster would read the question, we jumped to full height. There was a platform in the audience where the 3 judges sat out there looking over their cards, trying to guess who was first up, who was second up, who was third up, all the way down to 6th up, because in those days all 6 people could have a chance to answer the question or finish the question. So it was kind of a subjective process. We spent a lot of time practicing how to jump to full height the fastest. We did hundreds of deep knee bends every day to try to build up our jumping muscles. We're lucky we can even walk now because of that. We tried to figure out how we could make just the right amount of commotion while we're jumping to get the judge's attention, but not to get disqualified for the question. And so obviously, my father, sitting in the audience watching this happen, thought there's got to be a better way. There has to be something more accurate. Let me tell you just a little bit about my father. Paul's already mentioned a few things. He's actually a printer by trade, had 4 sons, all involved in quizzing. But he's the kind of guy that if he saw something that needed to be done to help somebody, even if he didn't know how to do it, he would research it, plan it, and then get it done. One thing he did, he heard that there was a missionary hospital, Free Methodist Missionary Hospital in Umri, India, that did not have a running water system. And so he was not an engineer and he was not a plumber, but he went to the library, no Google in those days, and researched how to do it, planned it, went over to India and pretty much single-handedly installed a running water system for that hospital. Woo! He also heard that Free Methodist missionaries around the world were having trouble communicating with each other. No cell phones, no internet, and so he invested in ham radio equipment, built a huge tower in our backyard, and spent many hours communicating with Free Methodist missionaries around the world, helping them to find the resources they needed to get the job done. Amen. After he retired, he and my mom did marriage encounter weekends where they helped groups of couples to enhance their marriages. They did over 100 marriage encounters. And then of course there were the quiz boxes. When my dad decided that something needed to be done, as Paul said, he researched it, planned it, and then did it. Bought the supplies from the Army surplus store, went down to our basement and soldered together the first quiz box. I don't really know how many quiz boxes he built, but I've heard from people from many parts of the country who started out on the Benson quiz boxes. My brother Paul remembers spending many hours sitting in the basement soldering together relays, for which his father paid him 50 cents an hour. So the last 2 years I quizzed, we quizzed on the quiz chairs. And so we spent much time figuring out how to get off that chair as fast as possible. Most all of the techniques that we developed at that time are now illegal. But they worked really well. One other thing I want to share with you, and that's about quizzing and the impact that it had on my life, because that was 57 years ago that I captained the international championship team. And subsequent to that, I went to medical school, became a physician, started some inner city clinics in Indianapolis, spent 40 years taking care of poor people in Indianapolis, drug addicts, HIV patients, homeless people in Indianapolis and Los Angeles. And I can say without reservation that without quizzing, the quiz experience, I'm convinced that I never would have made it through medical school. And the reason I say that is that just as you all do now, our quiz coach, a little retired missionary lady named Miss Murray, prepared for us hundreds and thousands of questions so that we could learn the material on John and Genesis and Luke and Acts. And I was having a terrible time in my first several weeks of medical school just because they throw so much stuff at you so fast. And the very first day in histology class, the professor said, by tomorrow, read the first 50 pages of your histology book and be ready to talk about it. And it was just one of the 5 or 6 different courses we took in our freshman year. And by the time we were 3 weeks into medical school, I was really in trouble. There's so much material I had to try to remember. It then occurred to me about Miss Murray's technique of writing questions on the material. And I started doing that. And every paragraph that I would read in these medical textbooks, I would think, what's important here? And then I write out a question about it. And then to study for the test, I didn't study the textbooks. I just kept going through those questions and going through the questions until I knew the answers. And that worked. That's something for each of you to keep in mind too, as you progress through your academic careers, as you end up going to medical school or law school or seminary or wherever it is you do. Use the question technique that you're learning in Bible quizzing. Bible quizzing can impact your life in terms of your values and the roots that you establish, but it can also help you in terms of this technique for learning. So we weren't really the greatest team in the history of Bible quizzing. The greatest quizzers are here today. The greatest quizzers were last year. The greatest quizzers were the year before that. Anybody that gets involved in Bible quizzing is the greatest. And I want to commend you for it. And it's a real honor on behalf of our family to have this particular trophy named the John Benson Trophy.